Hi, today I'm going to be showing you how to apply for citizenship application if your spouse is a British citizen. First of all, you will go to gov.uk, you'll type in apply for citizenship if your spouse is a British citizen, and you will see this screen. So what we will do is we'll go down and click here, fill in the form online. I'm going to reject the cookies. It asks, are you making the application from the UK? The answer is yes. And then there are certain criterias which I will explain later as we go along. But let's just to let you know, the cost of this application for citizenship is £1,735 as of today in February 2026. Now go continue here, and I'm going to start this application form. Are you completing this form on behalf of someone else? If you are, say yes. If not, just say no. Now you have to give the name of the applicant. This should be identical to the passport that you already have. So I'm going to say it's a female, and I'm going to say it's Neha Roy, and click continue. In addition to the names already provided, are you now or have been ever known by any other name? Make sure this is so we have not changed the name. Click no. Is this the email to contact? We'd say yes. Is this where you live? The answer is yes. And then you have to select from the date you started living at this address. So please make sure that you check your the time. For example, if you entered the UK on a spouse visa, and since then you've been living at this address, please make sure you select the month. Say you started in January and you started living since um, 2018. And is have you lived at your current address for 5 years? The answer is yes. If not, say no, because they will do the checks for you. Now, this is where you have to select your citizenship ceremony. Where do you want it to be held? She lives in Newham, so I'm going to select Newham Council. So there is Newham Council. I see save and continue. And she's going to select the sex is female. The status is married. This is quite important. And then you have to say what is her nationality right now, at the time of birth, where she was born, India, and she was born in Mumbai, and she has to provide a date of birth. For the ease of use, I'm going to say she's about 26 years old. Now, can you provide a valid passport? The answer is yes. Then provide passport detail. It was issued by Republic of India, and I will just give it was issued on 1st of January 2018. It is valid for 10 years, so it is valid till 2028. Do you have a BRP permit? So this is quite important. Now, BRP permits were actually valid till 31st of December 2024. They used to look like pink ones, but if in case you don't have the BRP permit, or you think you have an e-visa, then you select no and enter the details. But if you have one, even if it is expired in 2024, it is valid for 18 months to be used here. So I'm going to just select this one, copy and paste. Normally you would have the BRP number on the right hand side, and then you enter that number. Then do you have ID card? For example, certain people in India, they have two forms of other IDs. One is called Aadhaar card and one is called PAN card. If you have one, say yes and enter the details, but I'm not going to say yes here. Do you hold any other nationalities? If you hold, say yes. If no, just click no. Now, this is important. Have you been granted indefinite leave to enter or remain in the UK? This is really, really important. Now, you are a spouse of somebody who's married to a British citizen, but in order to apply for this citizenship, you need to have this status. So, usually, what happens is a spouse comes on spouse visa for, say, 3 years, or say it is issued in 30 months and 30 months, so there are two extensions of that visa. But usually if you've resided in the UK for 5 years continuously, then you're eligible for indefinite leave to remain in the UK, right? So you should normally select yes, and you should provide the date when you were granted indefinite leave to remain in the UK. There is something called indefinite leave to enter the UK. The difference is indefinite leave to enter is issued from outside of the UK if you made the application to settle in the UK from outside of the UK. If you wanted to make an application to remain permanently in the UK, then there is something called indefinite leave to remain in the UK. That is so basically, as a spouse, you came on spouse visa, you extended you lived in the UK for continuously 5 years, then you got eligible to remain in the UK indefinitely. Now, one of the most important differences which I want to mention, but let me mention that she became permanent on, say, 1st of January 2025. And was your indefinite leave to enter or remain granted under EU settlement? The answer is no. Now, what happens is if you are not a spouse and you're not married to a British citizen, usually if you have indefinite leave to remain or enter the UK, you have to wait for 12 months before the date of application. So, for example, if you got indefinite leave to remain or enter and you're not a spouse, normally you have to wait for 1 year. So that means you can apply after 1st of January 2026 for citizenship application. But for people who are spouse and married to British citizens, you don't have that 12-month waiting period. This is quite an important one. So I'm saying she got the indefinite leave to remain on 1st of January 2025. She could have applied for citizenship without waiting, but she's choosing to apply now. Click yes. Now, if you have a national insurance number, enter that. If you don't have one, just leave it empty. Have you passed the life in the UK test? Now, this is important. In order to become citizen of the UK, there are other requirements besides, that you must be married to a British citizen or you have an indefinite leave to remain or enter the UK. You need to pass two tests. One is life in the UK test, which is a simple test, costs £50 to book the test online, and you get a certificate for that. Second is to prove your knowledge of English language. So I'm going to say I passed the test and you get a reference number. So I'm going to just copy from here for the sake of it, and I'm going to paste it here. Now, do you have a previous visa, entry clearance, or leave to remain where you had to prove your knowledge of English? Most likely, yes, because if you would have come to the UK on a spouse visa, there would have been requirements to meet the English language. But normally, in the indefinite leave to remain, now there is a requirement of English language. So you say, I applied for indefinite leave to remain, and where I had to prove my English language. The reason why they are asking this is if at that point of time you gave a test for proving your English language, say B1 level, then you can use the same test certificate. And did you meet the knowledge of English requirement as a part of ILR application made on after 2013? The answer is yes. Do you have a degree that was taught in English? Now, let me pause here. So, there are two ways of proving your language ability. One is you have a degree that was taught in English, and you can get that degree verified by a third party called ECCTIS organization. I'm going to put the link down below in the description. Basically, they check whether the degree that you taught, master's degree or bachelor's degree, does it meet the UK equivalent, and they're going to give you a reference number. The fees is roughly 240 to 252 pounds in total, and they can take up to 3 weeks to verify whether you meet the language that is required. There are certain countries, if you're a national of certain countries like Antigua or other countries, which the list I'm going to be providing also at the bottom, is that if you belong to that country, then you do not have to prove your English language ability. Who else is exempt from this life in the UK test and English language? If you're above the age of 65 or if you're a child, you're exempted from that. So I'm going to say, do you have a degree taught in English? I'm going to say no. Now, have you passed the approved English language test? I'm going to say yes. And did the test assess your speaking, listening skills at the equivalent level of CEFP or B1? So you can find out what are the tests accepted, like IELTS, right? So I'm going to say I have a certificate. Click here, and now you have to give the details of your parents. So I'm going to say my parent is Mahima Roy. So this is where you give the details of your parents. 1st of January 1955, she Mumbai, and country of birth India. Pretty simple. You enter the details here. And has she always had the same nationality? The answer is yes. Now, father details. Next, now this is really important. So I'm going to take some time to help you understand. Please do not take this lightly. This could be the difference between your application getting accepted, approved, or refused. Okay, so these you don't have. You must make sure that you don't have a criminal conviction, a penalty for driving offense. So if you have, then select yes, and then you explain the circumstances in the cover letter. What you could do is, for example, if you have had a speeding fine or if you had a situation which where you had a civil court judgment against you, you explain the situation through an official document. If you have certain situations where the point is complex and you don't have an evidence, I highly recommend that you go through a solicitor, because they will be able to put your application in the right context and make the right disclosures. Because if you don't select something that belongs to you here, like a civil penalty issued by the immigration law, a judgment against you, for example, you did not pay the rent on time, they sued you, they took you to the court, and the judgment was in their favor, and if you fail to mention here, your application would be refused. So please make sure you do that. What you can do, if you have been on the wrong side and there was a dispute and you were able to set aside the order, select this option, say I have a judgment against me. Then when you have to upload the documents, upload the, say this is the copy of the judgment against me, this is the set aside order, that means that order has been set aside, and these are the circumstances, and I'm still trying to resolve this issue through my solicitors. Now what it does is it shows you as someone honest, accurate, and credible. Okay, never ever lie. So we don't have any of these. I'm not on the sex offenders register as an applicant. I have not been declared bankrupt. Please make sure you're not. You don't have any dependents, and you've not been with the war crimes. This is pretty simple. No terrorist activities, no terrorist organizations, and note, have you by any means expressed any views justify glorify violence? Please be super cautious about what you post on social media platforms. Does it incite violence? Could be deemed as something encouraging other people to take some action. Please do not do that, because they will do the search and you don't want to come across as like that. So I have done that. I move save. Now, this is an extremely important section called suitability, where they want a person of good character. So, first, they want to know, have you worked in paid or unpaid capacity for non UK government, which you know to be dangerous or in the interest against the interest of the UK? The answer is no. Have you engaged in any other activities which might indicate you may not be considered a person of good character? The answer is no. Is there any other information about your character which or behavior which you would like us to be make aware of? The answer is no. Okay, we say next. Now you need two referees, and I'm going to take again some time to explain this thing. The referee, I'm going to first write the name, say Linda Baker. So you need referees to confirm that they have known you for more than 3 years. They cannot be related to you. I'm going to enter her date of birth, and she was born in 2002. And I'm going to put some address, say one Shad Thames and London, and SE11EL. And has she lived at this address? So what is the most important thing? The referee cannot be a relative, he cannot be a solicitor agent who's actually applying for you right now. They cannot be related to another referee. For example, you know husband and wife couple, they're really nice, you know them for more than 3 years, they both are British, but they are in the same household as husband and wife. You cannot take them as two referees for this application. You can only select one. What you need to do is, and sometimes they would want that it could be a minister of religion, it could be a chartered accountant, it could be a solicitor. But I had a situation where my two dependents, that elderly dependents, had no social life, they did not know anyone. So here is what I wrote: because of the limited social life, they don't know anyone in the personal capacity who would vouch for them for 3 years. Therefore we are using two referees who are known to our children and their granddaughters. Like the applicants were quite old, and they have known each other for more than 4 or 5 years. So we are only recommending those people. But we preempted stating, I do not know any solicitor or an accountant who has personally known me for 3 years. So if you don't know someone who could be your typical referee, could be your employer's manager, your work colleague, you could be next door neighbor, right? These could be people, but they cannot be of the same household and cannot be related to each other. Okay, and make sure they don't have a criminal record. You enter the phone number, the email address, their profession, and they need to be British citizens, so they need to provide the number. And how does this person? So we say, she, Linda, for example, is my line manager since 2019. We socialize and meet often. She has known me since 2019. That's it. Please make sure before you enter the name of your referee, you take a passport copy that they have provided you and you check the name and the details so that there is no mistake, because they will do the checks against those things. So there's maybe I added another zero. Okay, now you have to enter the second referee. This is a male, and we can say Alex Jones. He is chartered surveyor. And does he have a British passport? The answer is yes. And how does he know? So Alex is a friend of my husband. They work together for many years, and has known me personally for 4 years. Whatever the duration is, make sure they have the same reasoning when they're about to fill up the form, because at the end of the form we will be asked to download these two PDF copies, which I'm going to share you on the screen how it looks like. It will usually have your photograph. At the back of the photograph they have to write your name and the date of birth before it is glued to that form, and then they have to read the form and then sign it physically. Once they have signed it, you have to scan the copy and then upload it back onto a different portal, which I'm about to disclose. Click save and continue. Now, this is where they ask, have you made any previous applications in the UK or abroad? The answer is yes, because when you came to the UK, came on a spouse visa. When you applied for ILR, you have to mention that. So you have to mention name in which you made. So she made Neha Roy, the same name. The date of application. So you say you made first 2017. And reference number, if you know, it's provided to you on the vignette or on the right hand side. There is there. Was this application made in the UK? The answer is no. You can say you made from Delhi. Fingerprints were taken, yes. If you don't know the date of fingerprints, don't worry about it. Just don't say no. Okay, then the next application you made, you say again you made in the same name, Neha Roy. You made the application. If you know the date of application, it's fine. If you don't know, just provide the reference number. And this time you made the application from the UK. The answer is yes. Were the fingerprints taken? The answer is yes. Because you have to understand, when you come to the UK on spouse visa, you granted 3 years, and then you have to extend it also, right? So once you've lived in total with your husband for 5 years, then you're eligible for the ILR. Once you get the ILR, then you can apply straight away without waiting for 12 months. Click save and continue. Have you made any other previous application? The answer is yes. And you can say Neha Roy. So not, sorry, Neha Roy of the husband. So I'm going to say the name is uh, Rohit Roy. He's a British citizen. So continue. Is your partner known by any other name? The answer is no. Date of birth, nationality, he is British, because that is the basis for you to claim. Date of birth, 1st of January, this is 2000, I can say 1998 he was born, for example. Is your partner a naturalized British citizen? So there are two ways. One is he was born in the UK, and then he was not a naturalized citizen. He was British citizen by birth because he was born to British parents. And then there is a law that states that if you're born before 1st of January 1983, you're automatically a British citizen. So if his parents were British and he got the British nationality through them, then he's not naturalized. If he went through the same ceremony as yours, which you're about to go through, then the answer would be yes. Here, he was born British, is where he was born. So I would say he was born in Richmond, country birth, United Kingdom. So there it is. And his partner's address. So you're going to say where you live right now. So 314. Continue. Now, the date of your marriage, this is quite an important one. Sometimes people have two weddings. One is in their home country where they came from, and then they register their marriage in the UK. So, what you should do. So, whichever is the date that you have filled up in the application form for the ILR or for the spouse visa, please make sure you use the same marriage date. So, what can possibly happen is you say, I was married on 1st of January 2016, sorry, 2016, for example. And where did you marry? I got married with Rohit in New Delhi, for example, at Taj Hotel, right? It was under Hindu traditions, right? Click save and continue. Have So you are the applicant. Now they're asking that other than you married to your current partner, have you been previously married? Because it's quite possible that you got divorced and now you're moving on. Now they want you to mention your previous partners. Do not lie. Please make sure you mention if you married before. The answer is no here. Then they're going to ask about, do you have children with any other partner? So right now your partner is Rohit, and if you got any children with him, other than that, have you had children with any other partner? The answer is no here. Are you employed? I would say yes. If not, then just say no. So say I am an AI engineer, I'm an employee, I work for Accenture UK PLC, for example, and he is in 10 Canada. The employer's office is in Square, Canary Wharf. Town is London, and the business code, whatever it is, E14, right? And then you start the date. Always look at your contract date in the employment contract date. So imagine you started on 1st of December 2020 and provide the reference number. This is usually on a payslip or on a tax return. You can easily get it. If you don't know, then don't mention that. But normally you should have that, right? Now, this is where they want to know, and I am going to take some time because this is the most important part for you that you need to understand. So, as I mentioned, last week I made a video for people who were on a 5 year route who had indefinite leave to remain or enter the UK and they were not married to as a spouse to a British citizen. So, this one is valid for them. But this one for you, what is valid is for you have been resident in the UK for 3 years and you married to a British citizen. So what you need to prove that you were in the UK from the date of application in the last 3 years, you were inside the UK and you spent no more than 270 days outside the UK's in the last 3 year period. This 450 days is not relevant for you. So let me explain the 270-day period. 90 days per year times 3 is 270. They're asking in the last 3 years, you have spent no more than 270 days in the 3 year period. What else is required? If we are today in 2026, we are applying, they want to know that in the last 12 months before this application, you've not been outside of the country for more than 90 days. Even if it is 91, if you stayed outside, your application would be refused. Do not do that. You will not get refund. What you should do if you stayed there for say 100 days, I would apply for application 10, 15 days later because then you will do the calculation backwards and see in the last 12 months how many days you were outside the UK. You understand? So please make sure this is the calculation. It's really simple. You need to calculate this is the day I was outside of the UK, this is the day I entered the UK. How are you going to calculate? Look at your passport stamps. When you leave the UK and you arrive in India, there is an arrival stamp. When you depart from India, there is a departure stamp. And when you arrive back in the UK, say you arrived in Heathrow, there'll be a black color stamp saying you arrived in the UK. So you need to do that. So they want to know when did you first arrive in the UK. See, when you got the spouse visa and you came to the UK for the first time, they want to know that. For example, so she arrived on 1st of January 2019. She arrived at Heathrow Airport. Answer is yes. Normally, there will be a stamp. Have you had any trips outside of the UK? Most likely, yes, because you've been living in the UK and you would have gone for holidays. This is the time you have to explain where you were there, why were you outside of the UK, and how long you were there. You do not need to disclose trips of 2 days or less. So we're gonna say yes. I went to India, for example, and I attended a wedding of a family member, or just I attended a wedding because there is not much space. What was the departure date? The date you left. How else you can prove this thing is you look through your emails and find the e-ticket, the date your flight was departing. Say she went in 2022 on 10th of April 2022. She returned on 10th of May 2022. You're right, 04. So she stayed for 30 days. Mind you, these number of days are automatically calculated by the system. You just need to make sure that the date you left the UK, the date means you were leaving the UK, and the date you arrived in the UK. This arrival would be a stamp that I arrived at Heathrow Airport, a black current stamp. So you have to make sure you go through your passport, each and every page, and you scan the passport copies. Then, have you taken any other relationship trips? I will say yes. And I say I went to say United States of America, say vacation. And here I will make it interesting because we're applying in 2026. I'm going to say I went in on 1st of August 2025 and I returned on 1st of September 2025. Now, this is roughly 31 days of vacation, okay? But this period of August 2020, 2025 to September 2025 is in the last 12 months. And the rule says that you must have not been outside of the UK for more than 90 days. Clearly, we were outside of the UK, but we were not outside of the UK for more than 90 days. That's why it's really important. Please make sure you go through your passport page by page in a chronological order and look at the stamps and find out and keep a track record through tickets that you bought. If you get this wrong, any calculation that you will get it wrong is likely to result in refusal, but it is pretty simple to do that. Click save and continue. Have you made any other additional trips? The answer is no. If you have, then explain that. Do you plan to make UK main home? Absolutely. Now they're asking if you are the husband and wife, civil partner of British citizen, you must have been in the UK for the last 3 years. You and this is called your qualifying period. 5 years has got nothing to do with the spouses. It's only the 3 years period. You must have been in the UK on the first day of your 3 year period. Means when you were, for example, in the last. If you are making application today is 6th of February 2026, right? Exactly 3 years ago on that day, you must have been physically present in the UK. That is the first point that they're trying to, because they will check that. The answer is yes. You must not have spent more than 270 days outside of the UK in the 3 year qualifying period, meaning from 2023 to 2026. In those 3 years, you must have not been outside of the UK in total for more than 270 days. Second, that is the answer. 450 days has got nothing to do with you. You must have not been outside of the UK for more than 90 days in the last 12 months. That means today's 2026 in February, in the last 12 months, you would have not been outside of the UK for more than 90 days. And you must have not been here illegally, which is obviously true. You say, do you meet these requirements? Absolutely yes. This is where people get it wrong. Are there any reasons why you cannot meet the requirements? For example, you had too many absences. If you had too many absences, say yes. But the challenge with that is if you've been outside of the UK more than the qualifying period, unless there was extenuating circumstances that you got suddenly ill or there was corona that resulted in you being blocked, then you explain that yes, I was outside of the UK, but the entire country was under the lockdown. Even if I wanted to come back, I could not. And here is the time period, and I was prevented from coming back. Show some communications. And then you say, oh, I understand that this person was locked in her country. She wanted to be with her husband, but she could not. Because if you do and give the context like this in the cover letter, they will look at it favorably, and it is completely understandable. Here, if you do not meet the statutory requirements to become British citizen, are there any circumstances which you think we should know to grant your application? So basically, what they're saying is there are some grounds like knowledge of language, life in the UK test, qualifying period of residence, the number of days outside the UK. If you have not met those requirements, are there anything that we should know in terms of special circumstances? Like you could explain about Corona, right? That I wanted to be with my husband, but I could not because I was under a lockdown in my home country. Do you have any other details that you would like to be considered for this applicant and their application to be registered as British citizen? I highly urge you to say yes and write something that you've not been able to give context of. Um, I was also I went to Germany for 2 days in 2021, but given you have asked us not to provide trip of 2 days or less, I am stating this for transparency. Trans- Please see stamp of travel traveled to Germany for work on page 11 of my new passport. Now you can see the form that this is the name of the person. If you want to change anything, you can click here change, and then you'll be able to save it again. You don't have to fill up the application form all in once. And I highly recommend that do not just submit it. Double check it, ask your husband to check it so that you go through each and every document, the passport number, the mobile number, the address, the postcode, the spellings of names of referees. It is extremely important. The dates when you entered the UK, exited the UK, it will be all seen, right? So here you have the details of your trip outside the UK. When you will go and make the payment, here the day number of days will be automatically calculated, and you will know how many days actually you were outside of the UK. In case you forgot to add the number one more trip, you can always go here and add that trip right away. You go and submit, continue. If you have another applicant like a child, you can add a child here. If you had another person, you can always add from here, and then the cost would be consolidated together and it will be based on the number of applicants. I don't have anyone. Click here. Now this is the documentation that required. So I'm going to take some time, so that this is where whatever you have claimed in the application form, you have to support it with evidence. First of all, you have to scan all your pages from the passport. Whether you have a current passport and an old passport, please make sure that you scan each and every page, including the blank page, right, of your passport, and save it as like Neha Roy underscore new passport, Neha Roy underscore old passport, Neha Roy underscore BRP card, new BRP card, like that. And you need to scan the page with medium compression, not very strong compression, so that they will go through each and every page and they would look at the stamps, because they want the copies of the passport pages, because they want to calculate that when you went in a certain country, when you came out, and whatever information that you're claiming in the form, does it match in terms of stamps also. So please make sure that there is no mistake. Okay, so that is one thing. Then you need to provide like English language certificate. Then you need to provide proof of living in the UK. Here it's really important. Sometimes one document can prove that you've been living in the UK with your husband for 3 years. Here you have to prove that you've been living 3 years if you're applying as a British citizen. So basically, what they're looking is, if you're applying in 2026, they want to see that you've been living with your husband since 2023 together, right? And there is a proof of that. Another thing, people confuse bank statements and household bills are not suitable proof of your living in the UK. So what can you provide? You can provide your employment contract copy, which would have been issued if you moved employers, to employment copies. Second, you can provide Departments of Works and Pension letters stating that this is your national insurance number. When you would have arrived in the UK, you would have registered with the GP. So a letter that came to your address, you should provide that. If you did an emergency appointment at a hospital and you physically attended, and somebody wrote that Neha attended the appointment, she was injured in appendix, we treated her with an antibiotic and all of that. If there is a proof of that, then they would give much weightage to that evidence also. What you should be doing that is create a timeline: 2020 or 2023, 2024, 2025. That is the last 3 years, right? And try to plug documents that you have proving that in each of the years you were there. So, for example, if you moved employers, you can get a form called P45 that shows that this is the amount of money that you earned, this is the income tax paid, this is the national insurance paid, this is the employer address, this is the national insurance number, and now you're moving to the new employer, so you would need a P46 or the different form, right? That would also prove. Never rely on a single document, always have a different variety. For example, you could get yourself registered on electoral register even 10 days before the application, right? And that would show you your name and the address. So in 2026, say you are applying in February, but in January you got the confirmation of being registered on the electoral register. That is completely okay, right? You can show another document in 2025 saying council tax bill, tenancy agreement joint in your husband's name and your name. If for some reason there is no document in your name, it is going to be difficult, but you have to find a way, for example, to get names in your bills so that it proves that you've been living with your husband. Okay, this is really, really important. Do not make the mistake of just applying 60 bank statements or 50 bank statements, because it's clearly stated they are not suitable proof of living in the UK. NHS visits that you've had, if you've taken photographs, for example, you went to a place called Kent in UK in a summertime, date and time is written, use that also. Also provide proof that you attended your work event at a certain hotel at a certain date and time. Provide communication like an email. If you lost your BRP card, or if you got a new passport issued for which you had to apply for a replacement BRP card, and you wrote to the home office, right? That communication also becomes the proof. So try to have at least 5 to 6 kinds of documents to prove that you've been living in the UK. And you can even show even 5 years of residence, because you got your spouse visa 6 7 years ago, you got the ILR. But say I'm showing you even not just for 3 years, I'm showing you that I've been living with my husband since the day I arrived till today. You can always do that, right? You need to provide your marriage certificate or a court affidavit copy. In certain countries, at the back of your passport, your husband's name is also provided. See here, you can send a photocopy of your spouse and a partner's passport. You must photocopy each and every page of the passport. Two referees of your Neha Roy, one proof of British citizenship of Mr. of Rohit. Basically, because you're claiming British citizenship of your husband, you need to provide copy of his passport also. Now these are the documents. So let's have a recap. First, you will provide colored copy of both new and old pages, new and old passport that you have. Do not club them together. They would want to know clearly the stamp is available, the day you arrived in the UK, any travel that you've done, and English language proof, then proof of living in the UK, and marriage certificate, then two referees signed, and then proof of British citizenship. Apart from that, apart from all of that, I would absolutely recommend that you upload a cover letter for naturalization application. You can, if you don't know how to write a cover letter, 2 days ago I created a video especially for that, is to how to draft a cover letter for drafting a naturalization application. Basically, a cover letter gives you an ability to give context, where sometimes you have a question saying yes or no, and sometimes you cannot fully disclose the answer. For example, you have a case in which there was a debt order against you, you said yes, and say I had a case where I have a dispute with my landlord, and I understand that this is asked of me. In the interest of disclosure, I'm disclosing that the case is still ongoing. But here is a copy of my solicitor. I have always paid rent on time. Here is the proof of my bank statements. But the issue was related to repairs. There was too much mold and dampness in my house, and that is why I stopped paying the rent. It is not out of choice that I wanted to not pay the rent, but because the living conditions were so poor that I stopped paying the rent. This is the context of it. This is the email. Now this order has been set aside by the judge, and we have a hearing on this in this date. And in case you need further details, may I please request you to contact my solicitor. And that is going to go a long way, because normally in the application form, they just ask, have you got any civil judgment against you? The answer is yes, but there is no place to explain the context, right? So always use the cover letter to explain that, and straight away write that I am claiming citizenship based on my husband, who's a British citizen. In the last 3 years, I've been resident in the UK. I have not been outside of the country as per the qualifying period. I've done the life in the UK test. I've got the English knowledge test. I've got the referees who are not related to me, but these are people from my work and my neighbors, and I am submitting this application, and I do not have a criminal record, so that it gives the context. If you want the copy of that cover letter to structure your argument, drop me a comment down below and I will provide you happily. You click save and continue. Now, I'm not going to go any further. The next portion is just to make the payment of £1,735. As soon as you make the payment, you will get a big UAR reference number, unique reference number, which will allow you that you will have to go to a new website called TLS Contact. It serves two purposes. It's a third party which takes care of two things. First, anything that you claimed here in the application form, all the supporting documents have to be uploaded on that portal. Second, you have to book your biometrics, which is to take fingerprints and your facial recognition, so that you can arrange a appointment. So there are two ways. Either you can upload the document yourself in PDF, which I highly recommend, or you can ask the TLS contact people to do it for you, but they will charge fees. My recommendation is this: when you go to TLS contact with your unique reference number, there'll be certain categories: proof of life in the UK, identification document, financial documents, proof of marriage. Each category you should upload only that document. Do not make the mistake of mixing categories up together. For example, if you have proof of life in the UK, you say Departments of Works and Pensions letter 2023, um, attending a public event with my employer in 2024 with Linda Baker. Then, right, that is going to make the job of the naturalization case assessment officer easier. The easier the job becomes, the more structured your application is, the higher the chances of your approval of application would be. Once the person is reading that, or the team is reading that, they will build a picture of you, whether you are a person of good character, whether you've been upfront and honest about something, and that's how it will progress. So I hope you've liked the video. Please do subscribe to my channel, and I'm making this enormous effort to make sure that whosoever is watching my video, you actually benefit from it. And my job is that, that I give you good meaningful information. um, but before I end this video, let me make this disclaimer very clear. This video is not legal advice. Um, if you're watching my video for the first time, my name is Savesh. I'm a barrister of law in England and Wales. I do not have the rights of audience, but I do have the authorization to provide unreserved legal services only. And this video is meant for educational purposes only. Now, I'm going to also, in the link down below in the description, provide you the naturalization booklet by the UK Home Office, which you can go through and see how do you go about proving certain documentation. It is really important, it is really helpful, and I wish you all the best, and I hope that you succeed in your application.